There are moments in life when everything slows down, like a camera shutter stretching out time frame by frame. For most people, one of those moments is staring down the barrel of a loaded shotgun. But for my wife, it was Tuesday. The shotgun was pointed straight at her chest. She didn't flinch. In fact, she tilted her head, smiled slightly, and asked, "Sir, do you know what a safety check is?" The man holding the gun, Carl Jensen, a self-important HOA security guard with delusions of authority, blinked. You could practically hear the gears grinding in his skull. And by the time he opened his mouth to say something dumb, the shotgun was no longer in his hands. Lana disarmed him in under 5 seconds. She popped the chamber open, dropped the shells with a neat little clink on the curb, and handed the empty weapon back like it was a lukewarm latte. "Here you go," she said. "This one's gone cold." And the best part? Every second of it was caught on 3 different cameras, hers, the HOA's gate feed, and the dash cam on her car. Multiple angles, multiple witnesses, and one very confused, very embarrassed man still standing there with his jaw on the sidewalk. Let me back up. We had only lived in Sagebrush Hills for 6 months, a gated community where lawns are symmetrical, mailboxes are approved by subcommittee, and the neighborhood watch is basically a civilian militia with matching polos. It was supposed to be a quiet place. The kind of place where you decompress after too many years chasing shadows overseas. Lana is a combat vet. Special Forces. She's got more scar tissue than most people of skin and eyes that scan every exit without thinking. Me? I'm in cybersecurity, paranoid in a quiet way, allergic to confrontation, and absolutely unprepared for what HOA politics could do to your blood pressure. But nothing could have prepared us for Karen Whitlock. She's the self-proclaimed Queen of Sagebrush Hills, President of the HOA, Master of the bylaws, and probably the only person on earth who has a laminated copy of the Community Parking Code in her purse. Think of a middle school principal with a Napoleon complex and a vendetta against non-compliant hedges. Now add power. And Carl? He's her hammer. Small cop energy. Badge 2 sizes too big. And a love for enforcement that should have set off alarms from the start. That morning, Lana had just come back from visiting her father in the hospital. It was 6:43 a.m. She was exhausted, running on fumes and muscle memory, still wearing yesterday's workout gear. And she had forgotten her gate pass. That was Carl's moment. His big break. He looked at this tired woman and saw a threat, not because she did anything wrong, but because she didn't shrink under his voice. She didn't fumble or apologize. She didn't even break eye contact. "You're not cleared to enter," he barked. Lana leaned out her window. "Run my name through the system," she said. Calm as ever. Carl puffed up. "You people think the rules don't apply to you," he snapped. "This is private property, sir," she replied, already dialing me on speaker. "You're making a mistake," I answered. Told him it was fine, that she was my wife and lived here. Carl shook his head like he was warding off a hallucination. "You think I'm stupid? You think you can trick me?" And that's when he reached for the shotgun. Now, let me be clear, Carl didn't fire, but he aimed it. And that's all Lana needed. She stepped out of her car slowly, hands visible, voice steady. "If you're going to treat me like a threat," she said, "I might as well act like one." Flash. Twist. Pop. Done. The shotgun rested peacefully on the curb. Carl stood frozen. And the moment the sirens began to howl in the distance, he realized, he was the one who had just screwed up. 3 days after the shotgun incident, we got the letter. Heavy cream cardstock. Faux gold lettering. And that passive-aggressive serif font only HOA boards and wedding planners think looks official. It read, "Notice of Emergency Community Standards Review. You are hereby summoned to attend a special session to discuss the recent disruption at the front gate. Attendance required. Business casual attire requested. Respectful dialogue expected." We both stared at it. Lana blinked. "Respectful dialogue," she said. Deadpan. That's code for shut up and let us scold you. We showed up anyway. Not because we thought anything productive would happen, but because we knew something else would. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse. A building that somehow smelled like burnt coffee, lemon cleaner, and broken dreams. Folding chairs had been arranged in neat little rows facing a long plastic table where the HOA board sat like they were about to preside over the Nuremberg trials. And at the center of it all was Karen Whitlock. Karen was dressed like a corporate funeral, black suit, pearls, and a face so tight with self-importance you could bounce a dime off her cheekbone. On her right was Linda, the treasurer who once tried to fine someone for painting their shutters emotionally aggressive yellow. On her left was Brent, who I'm pretty sure thought he was there for bingo night. The room quieted. Karen stood. This meeting, she began, is not about judgment. It's about accountability. About ensuring that every member of our peaceful community feels safe and heard. Safe. That word. My blood pressure spiked. Karen continued, voice syrupy with false diplomacy. We've reviewed the events of the recent gate disturbance and regret the escalation. However, it is our duty to address the behavior exhibited by Mrs. Lana Reeves, who, despite her background, used excessive force against a community security officer during a routine safety procedure. I opened my mouth, but she cut me off with a pointed look. We have also reviewed the video evidence privately, she added, and found it inconclusive. Therefore, in the interest of community harmony, effective immediately, Mrs. Reeves is barred from accessing the front gate and must apply for re-entry through alternative access routes. Any violation of this policy may result in further action. Lana sat completely still, calm, controlled, which was terrifying. If you knew her, that meant she wasn't angry. She was planning. I stood. You mean to say, I said slowly, that despite having 3 videos showing a security guard pointing a loaded weapon at a homeowner, and despite that homeowner neutralizing the threat without causing harm, you're banning her for disturbing the peace? Brent squinted. Well, we didn't really, we can't be sure she didn't provoke it. I cut in. Do any of you actually understand the legal exposure you're creating by defending an unlicensed guard with a firearm he wasn't allowed to carry? Karen smiled. Sir, we're simply enforcing community standards. That was it. The HOA wasn't trying to find truth. They were trying to protect their narrative, their control. And Lana? She was now a threat, not because of what she did, but because of what she proved. We left in silence. Lana didn't say a word until we got to the car. Then she looked at me and said, we don't fight this one in their clubhouse. We fight it in the paperwork. That night, while the board was busy patting themselves on the back for their fake verdict, we got to work. I combed through the HOA's public filings, meeting minutes, budget approvals, vendor contracts. Lana began outlining every legal point of the gate incident according to military and civilian standards of threat assessment and use of force. What we found wasn't just a crack in the wall. It was a full-blown structural failure. Carl? No license. Not for security. Not for firearms. Nothing. The HOA? They had quietly approved the purchase of 2 tactical shotguns 6 months ago, using discretionary funds labeled as equipment for community beautification. No resident was notified. No vote held. They weren't protecting the neighborhood. They were building a private army. Lana looked at the purchase order and laughed. Garden tools, she said. You think anyone's trimming hedges with a 12-gauge? I submitted 3 complaints that night, 1 to the County Housing Board, 1 to the State Licensing Division for Private Security Contractors, and 1 to the local media tip line. Subject line, decorated veteran disarms armed HOA guard, then gets banned from her own neighborhood. We knew the HOA thought they'd just scored a win. But they hadn't won a thing. They just walked straight into their own trap. And we were the ones holding the blueprints. It didn't take an army to fight back. It just took 2 pissed off homeowners, 3 public databases, and an internet connection. While Karen Whitlock and her clipboard crusaders were still basking in the afterglow of their little clubhouse inquisition, we were already several moves ahead. And this time, we weren't playing defense. I filed the first complaint at 2:03 a.m. to the County Office of Private Security Regulation, subject, unauthorized armed guard operating within HOA jurisdiction, urgent review requested. Attached were screenshots of Carl Jensen holding the shotgun, Lana's permit documents, and, most importantly, his non-existent license status. It turns out Carl wasn't just improperly armed. He wasn't even legally employed as a security officer. No registration. No background check. Nothing. He was as official as a Halloween costume with a badge taped to it. The second complaint went to the State Department of Housing Oversight, citing misuse of funds and lack of transparency in HOA procurement votes. We attached the board's beautification expenditure report, $3.200 labeled garden tool upgrades, used to purchase 2 tactical-grade shotguns and 3 ballistic vests. The third went to a local journalist I knew from college. Subject line, decorated veteran disarms armed HOA guard, gets banned by neighborhood leaders who bought guns as garden tools. That one got a reply within 18 hours. You have footage? Oh. We had footage. Meanwhile, Lana took another route. She wasn't interested in paperwork. She was interested in perception. That meant narrative. That meant going public, but smart. She clipped a 37-second snippet from her phone's angle. No audio. Just the visual of Carl raising the shotgun and Lana calmly disarming him without raising her voice or a single fist. She didn't post it to YouTube. No hashtags. No grandstanding. Just a quiet upload on a veterans-only message board under the caption, "Came home from the hospital. Got this welcome. Would love your thoughts." The response was explosive. Within a day, it had over 17,000 views. Within 2, it hit local vet forums, homeowner rights subreddits, and even a few HOA watchdog groups that I'd never heard of before. The reactions ranged from disbelief to outright fury. She handled that better than I would have. One vet wrote, "Point a gun at my wife? That HOA would need a new zip code," said another. "My cousin lives in Sagebrush Hills. They're a nightmare. Thank you for exposing this." Suddenly, we weren't alone anymore. Neighbors who hadn't made eye contact in 6 months started waving at us. Mr. Patel, who lived 3 houses down and never spoke more than a mumbled morning, knocked on our door with a Tupperware of lentil stew and said, "My nephew's army. He saw your clip. Said your wife's a badass." Lana smiled and said thank you. I saw her shoulders drop just a little. Like for the first time since this started. The weight wasn't entirely on her. By the end of that week, 5 other homeowners had approached us quietly. One left a folded note in our mailbox that said, "I've seen what they've done. I have meeting minutes. Count me in." We weren't staging a coup. Not yet. But we were collecting allies, and data. With each passing day, more discrepancies surfaced. The board had approved thousands in discretionary spending without notifying residents. Their vendor contracts were hand-signed by Karen's cousin. The gate security wasn't just unlicensed, it was technically operating as a private law enforcement body without proper charter. We compiled it all. Dates, names, receipts, screenshots. Lana, who used to write threat assessments for Special Forces missions, drafted a civilian version, outlining every HOA failure through a risk management lens. It wasn't angry. It was cold, clinical, brutal in its clarity. And then came the cherry on top. One of the new neighbors, an older woman named Susan Carter, came forward with an HOA handbook from 5 years ago. The bylaws had changed drastically since then. Clauses were missing. Some had been rewritten. Others added without any record of a vote. Karen hadn't just bent the rules. She rewrote them. Quietly. Sloppily. Illegally. Lana looked at the growing stack of documents. Then at me. And said, She thinks this is a battle over gate access. She has no idea she's already at war. But Karen was about to find out. Because behind every signature we gathered, every whisper of support, and every click of a shared video was momentum. And you can't ban that at the gate. You can always tell when a regime starts to crack. It's not with a bang. It's with whispers. At first, it was just little things. HOA board members not making eye contact. Group emails going out with fewer names in the CC field. Karen's once daily patrols became twice. Then 3 times a day, same clipboard. Same oversized sunglasses. But now with that stiff kind of walk you only see on people who suspect the walls are listening. Then came the official envelope. Not from the HOA this time. Not from Karen. This one was delivered by 2 people in navy windbreakers from the County Department of Community Affairs, clipboards in hand. Badges visible. They didn't come to us first. They went straight to the HOA clubhouse. Residents watched from behind blinds as the 2 officials walked in with briefcases and walked out with 3 boxes of files. No announcements. No explanations. Just a slow, methodical extraction of secrets. The next day, a notice was taped to the bulletin board outside the community pool. Notice of county investigation, in accordance with county compliance protocol. An audit is being conducted on the Sagebrush Hills HOA regarding financial transparency, regulatory compliance, and private security authorization. During this process, certain enforcement actions will be suspended. It was short, clinical, but it landed like a bomb. That evening, I got a knock on the door. It was Brent, the same Brent who once nodded along while Karen declared solar-powered bird feeders aesthetically disruptive. He looked pale, eyes sunken, and held a manila envelope in shaking hands. "I'm out," he said. Voice low. "I didn't sign up for this." Inside the envelope were minutes from meetings that had never been posted publicly. Votes held without quorum. Payments made to a landscaping company registered under Karen's maiden name. A reimbursement for security equipment acquisition with no invoice. Just a post-it note signed KW. We thanked him. He didn't stay. 2 days later, Linda, the treasurer, resigned. No speech. No fanfare. Just a cardboard box carried out of the clubhouse at 6:17 in the morning while most people were still asleep. But not us. Lana was already jogging her loop. And I was sipping coffee on the porch. We locked eyes for a second. Linda didn't wave. And Carl? He vanished. One morning he was pacing the gate with his usual swagger. Aviators and all. The next, he was gone. Rumor had it he'd taken a leave of absence. But someone else said they'd seen him driving out of town with his truck packed to the ceiling. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a ghost with a badge-shaped hole behind him. The neighborhood mood shifted fast. People weren't whispering anymore, they were organizing. A group of residents, led by a woman named Sarah from the North Cul-de-sac, started circulating a petition for a full HOA board dissolution. The last time someone tried something similar, Karen shut it down before it hit 10 signatures. This time, it got 57 in 2 days. Jake and I gathered everything: documents, photos, emails, signatures, and the now viral footage. We packed it into a binder thick enough to bruise someone with and walked it straight into the County Office of Financial Review. The woman at the front desk flipped through the pages, whistled low, and said, "You're the 3rd person this week bringing stuff on Sagebrush Hills." That's when we knew we weren't just fighting Karen anymore. We were part of something larger. Karen, however, hadn't accepted that reality yet. Her next move was desperation disguised as bravado. She sent out a HOA-wide email blast filled with phrases like malicious slander, vigilante disruptions, and community under siege by external actors. She accused us, without naming us, of course, of inciting division, of distorting facts, of endangering neighborhood harmony. It was unhinged. It was also ignored. Nobody replied. No one defended her in the replies. The silence was louder than any argument. Lana read it. Then looked at me and said, "She thinks this is the climax. It's not. It's just the countdown." The real climax? That was still coming, because we hadn't fired our final shot yet. There wasn't a single explosion. No dramatic outburst. No gavel slammed in anger. Just paper. Thick. Government-stamped. Fact-loaded paper, and the sound of a regime quietly choking on its own rules. The hearing was held in a modest county building with flickering fluorescent lights and a receptionist who looked like she'd seen it all. We arrived early. Lana wore tailored slacks, a crisp button-up, and a look that said, "You really thought you could break me with a gate code?" I carried the evidence binder, over 300 pages. Color-coded. Tabbed. Indexed. It felt like bringing the final nail to a coffin everyone else had already started hammering shut. Karen walked in 10 minutes late. Her usual armor, bold lip color, sharp blazer, smug smile, was gone. She looked smaller, paler. But the defiance was still there, twitching beneath the surface like static. Her only allies were gone. Linda had resigned. Brent never showed. Carl had gone radio silent. Last seen in Nevada trying to file a workplace trauma claim. And Karen? She walked in with a briefcase and a brittle smile. Like a dethroned queen still pretending the crown hadn't cracked. The panel wasn't impressed. 3 county officials sat behind a long wooden desk with files already open in front of them. No fanfare. No long speeches. Just business. The charges were read aloud in dry legalese. Unauthorized procurement of weapons using misappropriated funds, employment of unlicensed armed personnel, failure to disclose financial records to residents, obstruction of community access based on unratified policy, endangerment of residents through improper enforcement authority. Karen tried to interrupt, tried to frame it all as vigilante disruption and unfounded accusations stirred by online misinformation. But the panel didn't bite. They played the footage. 3 angles. No audio. Just a woman calmly disarming a man pointing a shotgun at her. It lasted 12 seconds. But the room stayed silent for another 30 after that. Then they turned to Lana. "Mrs. Reeves," one official said, "would you walk us through what happened in your own words?" She didn't flinch. She laid it out, calm, precise, unshakable. She referenced her military training, explained the rules of engagement, outlined the escalation protocol. She emphasized that she never touched Carl until the weapon was already pointed. She showed restraint. She showed discipline. She made the board look like amateurs. Then I spoke, presented the documentation. The falsified budget entries. The backdated meeting minutes. The vendor contracts signed by Karen's cousin's shell company. The shotgun purchases labeled under community garden maintenance. The room smelled like toner and panic. By the time we were done, Karen looked like a statue, rigid, glassy-eyed, waiting for a pardon that would never come. The verdict came swiftly, effective immediately. The Sagebrush Hills HOA board is suspended pending full audit. All current board members are to step down. An election will be held within 45 days under county supervision. All residents affected by enforcement decisions in the past 6 months are to be reinstated with full access and receive formal written apologies. Karen opened her mouth, closed it again, sat down like someone finally feeling the weight of her own collapse. Outside the building, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread, probably through Mr. Patel, who now had a mysterious gift for being coincidentally near anything newsworthy. There were no signs, no chanting, just quiet nods, a few claps, and that warm, unmistakable feeling of people finally exhaling. 2 days later, a letter arrived, handwritten, neat cursive, from Karen. "Due to unforeseen medical concerns, I will be stepping away from my role within the HOA. I wish the community well in its future endeavors." No apology. Not even a hint of accountability. Lana framed it and hung it in the garage. Title, "Mission Accomplished." And then, almost as if scripted, someone said, We should throw a party that weekend. We did. Grills were rolled out. Tables filled with food. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months brought pies, lemonade, side dishes they were proud of. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone set off a few illegal fireworks. No one called the HOA. In the middle of it all, Lana stood by the barbecue, flipping burgers in the exact same spot where she once sat quietly while Karen tried to paint her as a danger. Now, she was the reason the neighborhood had finally found peace. Mr. Patel raised a beer. To Lana, he said, who proved you don't need to shout to win, you just need to show up and not blink. Everyone clapped. Lana just smiled. As the sunset and music drifted through the air, I looked around and realized, this is what community was supposed to feel like. Not control. Not fear. Not clipboards and citations. Just people. Finally being neighbors again. And now, every time we drive through the front gate, no longer patrolled by a wannabe Rambo, I look at that little scorch mark on the curb where the shells once landed. A quiet reminder. You don't point a shotgun at a soldier and expect to walk away clean. Not here. Not ever again.